Red Bull brought 7 upgrades to Austria, 7 changes at their home race, with Max Verstappen already over 100 points behind Antonelli. This was supposed to be the rescue plan, but then the RB22 started sending an even darker message. It was still shaking, still bouncing, still refusing to give Verstappen control. And when a 4-time world champion says every lap feels like survival, the problem is no longer just speed, it is trust. Because a new floor can add downforce, but if that downforce disappears at the wrong moment, the car becomes more dangerous, not faster. A new side pod can improve cooling, but if it changes the airflow feeding the rear, Verstappen feels it instantly. Weight saving can help lap time, but it cannot fix a car that still snaps, slides, and shakes underneath him. That is why this upgrade may have been too risky. Red Bull did not change one part. They changed 7 connected parts on a car they still do not fully understand. And if the RB22 feels worse after the biggest package of the season, Austria did not reveal a failed upgrade. It revealed something far more serious. Red Bull may not be developing its way out of trouble. It may still be searching for what is broken. The first thing to understand is that Red Bull's Austrian upgrade was not built for comfort. It was built under pressure. That matters, because pressure changes the way a Formula One team develops a car. When a team is calm, upgrades arrive like steps on a staircase. One piece improves airflow. Another helps balance. Another reduces drag. The driver feels a direction. The engineers confirm it with data, and the car slowly becomes more complete. But when a team is under pressure, upgrades start to feel different. They become heavier. They carry emotion. They carry expectation. They carry the fear that if this package does not work, the season may already be moving beyond reach. That is where Red Bull was when it arrived in Austria. This was not just another race. This was the home race. The place where Red Bull needed a response. The place where the team wanted the crowd, the paddock, and especially Max Verstappen to feel that the fight was not over. But the RB22 had already damaged that belief. And once a car damages belief, every upgrade becomes a test of trust. That is why the word shaking is so important. Because shaking is not only a physical problem, it is a confidence problem. A Formula One driver does not experience a car the way a fan sees it on television. A fan sees speed, color, braking, and acceleration. The driver feels every vibration, every movement, every shift in grip, every tiny warning that the car may not do the same thing twice. When the car shakes, the driver's confidence shakes with it. The steering does not feel clean. The braking zone does not feel stable. The rear does not feel planted. The floor does not feel like it is giving the same grip every time. And if the driver cannot trust what the car is telling him, he cannot attack the limit with full belief. That is what Red Bull needed to fix. Not just the lap time, the feeling. Because Verstappen had already made the problem painfully clear. He was not saying the car needs 1/10. He was not saying the balance is a little off. He was saying the car was undriveable. He was saying every lap felt like survival. He was saying he could not push because the car would not let him. Those words matter because they come from Verstappen. This is not a driver who panics when a car is difficult. This is not a driver who needs everything perfect before he can be fast. Verstappen has spent years making extreme cars look controllable. He can live with aggression. He can live with oversteer. He can live with a car that demands commitment, but he cannot live with a car that lies to him. And that is what the RB22 seemed to be doing. It would not turn properly when he needed rotation. Then it would become nervous when he needed stability. It asked him to trust the front, then punish him with the rear. It asked him to attack, then made the limit move. That is not a balance problem. That is a relationship problem between driver and machine. And once that relationship breaks, the whole weekend becomes harder. A driver needs a reference, a braking reference, a steering reference, a traction reference, a feeling that tells him this is where the edge is. Without that, every lap becomes guesswork. And guesswork at Formula One speed is brutal. You cannot guess your way through a qualifying lap against Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren. You cannot guess your way into a championship comeback. You cannot guess your way through Austria, where the lap is short, exposed, and punishes hesitation instantly. That is why Red Bull's 7-part package was so risky. Because Red Bull did not change one isolated piece on a stable car. They changed several connected areas on a car already struggling to behave. A revised side pod inlet affects cooling, yes, but it also affects how air moves around the bodywork. A new engine cover helps manage cooling and reliability, yes, but it also changes the flow going toward the rear of the car. A revised floor and floorboard can create more downforce, yes, but if that downforce is not stable across ride heights, the driver may feel the car grip one moment and release the next. Reprofiled suspension fairings can clean up airflow, yes, but they also change the way air reaches sensitive areas near the rear. Rear wing pylon changes can improve flow stability, yes, but they can also shift how the rear of the car behaves at speed. A new exhaust tailpipe detail can create local aerodynamic load, yes, but local changes can have wider consequences, and weight saving is always valuable, yes. But removing weight does not automatically give the driver a car that feels predictable. That is the hidden danger. Every one of those parts may make sense on its own, but Formula One cars do not work as separate parts. They work as conversations. Air talks to the floor talks to the suspension talks to the tires talk to the driver, and the driver tells engineers whether the conversation makes sense. With the RB22, Verstappen had been saying the conversation did not make sense. So Red Bull arrived with 7 new voices at once. And that can help, but it can also create chaos. Because if the car is already difficult to read, a massive upgrade package can make the diagnosis harder, not easier. If the car feels worse after one new part, the team knows where to look. If it feels worse after 7 changes, the garage becomes a maze. Was the problem the floor? Was it the side pod flow? Was it the cooling bodywork? Was it the rear suspension fairing behavior? Was it the wing pylon interaction? Was it the exhaust detail? Was it the weight reduction changing a compromise somewhere else? Or was the real problem that the original concept was too sensitive for any of these changes to fully calm it? That is why Austria mattered so much. It was not simply a performance test. It was a truth test. Red Bull needed to know whether its biggest package of the season actually gave the car a clearer direction, because a fast car that is hard to understand can still ruin a team. The engineers need feedback they can trust. The driver needs behavior he can predict. The strategist needs confidence that the car will protect tires and respond to race conditions. If none of that exists, performance becomes theoretical, and theoretical performance does not win Grand Prix. The RB22's biggest weakness may not have been that it lacked performance everywhere. The deeper problem was that the performance it had was too difficult to use. That is a painful thing for a team to admit, because it means the numbers may not be completely terrible in isolation. The car may produce downforce in certain conditions. The power unit may be competitive. The simulations may show potential. The upgrade may even add load in the places Red Bull expected. But if Verstappen cannot access that potential cleanly, it does not matter. A car is only as fast as a driver can trust it to be. That is why the Ford power unit detail makes the story even more frustrating for Red Bull. The power unit was supposed to be the great unknown of the new era. Red Bull powertrains and Ford were stepping into a difficult regulation set with much larger electrical component and huge pressure to match established manufacturers. Many people expected the engine to be the weakness, but the evidence points to something more uncomfortable. The engine may actually be a bright spot. The Red Bull powertrain's Ford unit appears competitive enough that the main problem is not raw power. That should be good news. Instead, it makes the chassis crisis look worse. Because if the power unit is strong, then Red Bull has power it cannot properly use. It has a strong heart inside a body that shakes when it should sprint. That is one of the worst mismatches in Formula One. A driver can only use power when the car lets him. If the rear is unstable, he cannot open the throttle early. If the car bounces, he cannot place it precisely. If the floor is inconsistent, he cannot trust the load. If the tires are being punished by weight and balance problems, the power becomes harder to convert into lap time. So the strength is there, but the car refuses to turn it into a result. That is why the Austrian package had to do more than improve the RB22. It had to reconcile it. It had to make the engine, chassis, aero platform, suspension, and tires behave like one machine instead of several systems pulling in different directions. And that is incredibly difficult in the middle of a season, especially with a car that operates in a narrow setup window. A narrow setup window is like a door that only opens if you stand in exactly the right spot. Too high and the aero balance changes. Too low and the ride becomes harsh or unstable. Too much wing and the car may lose efficiency. Too little wing and the rear may not support the driver. Tires slightly too cold and the front does not bite. Tires slightly too hot and the rear starts moving. The driver needs confidence, but the car only gives it under perfect conditions. That is not a racing car. You can build a championship comeback around. Austria makes that even worse. The Red Bull ring has elevation, hard braking, short bursts of acceleration, curbs, quick changes in load. A car is to settle fast because the next demand arrives almost immediately. If the car shakes or bounces, the driver cannot simply wait and recover later on the lap. There is no space. The time is gone. And that is why Verstappen's ride quality complaints from previous weekends mattered so much heading into Austria. A car that bounces in Monaco and Montreal is already sending a signal. The platform is not calm. The driver is not comfortable. The suspension and aero may not be working together cleanly. Now bring a 7-part upgrade to a circuit that exposes platform control and the risk becomes obvious. Red Bull was trying to fix a shaking car while changing the pieces that decide how the car moves through the air. That is a delicate operation. Maybe too delicate for a team already under this much pressure. Because pressure does not only affect drivers, it affects development decisions. A team that is 1 or 2 tenths away can be patient. It can test carefully. It can bring one part, measure it, then bring the next. But a team that is over 100 points behind in the driver's fight, sitting fourth in the Constructors' Championship, and watching its world champion describe the car's survival, does not have the luxury of patience. It has to push. And when a team has to push, it sometimes brings a package that is bigger than the car is ready to digest. That may be what happened with the RB22. The upgrade was ambitious, but ambition and understanding are not the same thing. Understanding is when the driver says, yes, this is better. The front is clearer. The rear is calmer. The car gives me more confidence. The setup change moved us in the direction we expected. Now we can build. Without that, the upgrade is just data. And Red Bull did not need more confusion. They needed a turning point. This is why the word risky matters. Risky does not mean the engineers made a foolish decision. It means the situation forced them into a dangerous one. They had to attack the floor. They had to attack the cooling layout. They had to keep reducing weight. They had to try to stabilize airflow toward the rear. They had to bring enough performance to show Verstappen the team was still fighting. But the more they changed, the greater the chance that the car's behavior would shift in unexpected ways.